I wish I could say this was just another traffic stop, just a regular day. But it wasn't. It was the day I got reminded, again, that my badge doesn't protect me from being black in America. I had just finished a 14-hour undercover operation, exhausted, still wearing my tactical jeans and hoodie, no makeup, hair in a messy bun. I just want to get home, take a shower, and sleep. But before I could even get off the highway, red and blue lights lit up behind me. I pulled over, rolled down my window, hands on the wheel. I know the drill. He approached like I was a threat. Hand on his gun. No smile. No, ma'am. Just license and registration. You were swerving. I wasn't swerving. I was changing lanes to avoid a pothole. But I didn't argue. I stayed calm. I handed him my ID and badge. Yes, my FBI badge. Flashed it, so there'd be no confusion. Told him I was a federal agent heading home from an op, thought that'd be the end of it. But he just stared at me, eyes narrowed, like he didn't believe what he was seeing. Then he said something I won't forget. Nice prop. You people would do anything to avoid a ticket. This is Justice Unspoken, where real stories of police injustice, racial profiling, and abuse of power come to light. Subscribe now, because these stories aren't just headlines. They're our lives. I laughed for a second, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did he really think I made up being an agent? That I went out and bought a fake federal ID to get out of a traffic stop? I told him to run my badge number. I told him to call it in. He didn't. Instead, he told me to step out of the vehicle. Now I've worked in law enforcement long enough to know when someone is trying to assert power, not justice. This wasn't about safety. This was about control. I stepped out, calm, still trying to de-escalate. But the moment I was out, he slammed me against the car. Stop resisting, he yelled. I wasn't resisting. I was stunned. My cheek hit cold metal. He cuffed me, while my badge was still hanging from my neck. People started pulling out phones, recording. I could hear them yelling. She's an agent. She showed him her badge. But he didn't care. He was in too deep now. Ego too big. Pride too loud. He threw me in the back of the cruiser, like a criminal. I was still trying to process it. Still trying to figure out how this man looked me in the face, saw my credentials, and still decided I was just another black woman lying her way out of trouble. He didn't see a federal agent. He saw a threat. And that was just the beginning. I sat in the back of that cruiser, hands cupped behind me, wrists burning, heart pounding, not just from fear, but from rage. I kept thinking, is this really happening? I've been undercover with drug cartels. I've kicked down doors in human trafficking busts. I've stared danger in the face more times than I can count. But I've never felt smaller, more dehumanized, than sitting in the back of that cop car, treated like trash for simply being who I am. He hadn't even run my ID. He didn't check my badge. He made a choice the second he saw me, a black woman behind the wheel of a nice car, alone, tired, dressed in plain clothes. To him, I wasn't an agent. I was a suspect. I watched him outside the cruiser, pacing, chest puffed out, hands still on his weapon like I was about to turn into a threat at any moment. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind him who the hell I was, but I stayed quiet because I knew how this could go. Then backup arrived. 2 more squad cars, sirens blaring, lights everywhere. One of the officers walked up to him and asked, "What's the situation?" I saw him wave toward me like I was a piece of evidence. Caught this one trying to impersonate a Fed. Pulled out a fake badge. I swear my blood went cold. That was slander. Straight up. He knew it wasn't fake. He knew. I told him to call it in. He refused. He wanted a story that fit his bias. But karma, it doesn't sleep for long. Just then, I saw a black SUV pull up fast. Government plates. One of my supervisors. Word had gotten out. Someone must have recognized me in one of those bystander videos going viral. He stepped out in full suit, real calm, real serious. Walked right up to the officer and said, "Why the hell is one of my agents in cuffs?" Everything went silent. The smug look on the cop's face cracked. Just for a second, he stuttered, tried to explain. said I gave him reason to believe I was faking. My supervisor didn't even argue. He just walked past him, opened the cruiser door, and helped me out himself. Took the cuffs off, looked me in the eye, and said, "You good?" I nodded, but I wasn't. Not even close. My wrists were bruised. My pride? Shattered. In front of civilians, in front of phones, in front of the world, I was humiliated. And that cop? He knew he messed up, but he still wouldn't apologize. He doubled down, said he was just doing his job. That's when I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The ride back to the field office was quiet. I didn't say much. Neither did my supervisor. But when we got there, I could feel the shift in the air. Everyone had heard. Some watched me with shock, others with sympathy. But one thing was clear. I was now the agent who got arrested by a local cop while doing nothing but driving home. I went straight to the medical wing. Got my wrist checked. Swelling, bruising, nothing broken. But the nurse looked at me like she'd seen this before, like this wasn't new. Then came the paperwork, the internal reports, the statements. My supervisor told me, "We'll handle this." But I've been in the system long enough to know how that goes. I didn't want this swept under the rug. So I wrote it all down. Every word that cop said, every action he took, every time he ignored my credentials. I attached the body cam request, the bystander videos already circulating online, the bruises on my wrists. But here's the thing that really hit me. Even as an FBI agent, I had a fight to be believed. I had the badge, the training, the federal backing, and I still had to prove I was worthy of respect. What about the people who don't have all that? What happens to the ones who get arrested, beaten, or worse? With no camera, no badge, no one coming to pull them out of the car. That thought haunted me. 3 days later, I was called into a meeting with the Bureau's legal team. They had received a formal complaint from the local department against me. You heard that right. The cop claimed I was hostile, uncooperative, and created confusion during a lawful stop. I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. It was a warning. They were trying to flip the narrative, paint me as the aggressor, turn the story on its head before the truth could catch up. But what they didn't know was that I had more than just a story. I had proof. I had dash cam footage from my car, crystal clear audio of me identifying myself, staying calm, following every command. I had the viral video from bystanders, already getting thousands of shares. And I had allies, other agents, both black and white, who knew me, who knew my record, who knew I didn't make things up. So I made a choice. I wasn't going to let this die quietly. I wasn't going to just move on like nothing happened. I filed my own formal complaint against the officer and the department. I requested a federal civil rights investigation. I contacted a civil rights attorney. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every black professional who's been made to feel like their success means nothing when they're pulled over. And I was ready for the fight. The investigation didn't move as fast as I wanted. Days stretched into weeks. Every time I thought we were getting close to answers, the department would release vague statements about pending inquiries. Meanwhile, the cop, he acted like nothing happened. No apology, no sign of remorse. Just back on patrol, smiling like he hadn't just been caught abusing his power. I remember one night, I saw him at a community event. I was there, too, trying to connect with locals, show them that not all cops are the same. But when he caught my eye, that smirk returned. That look, the one that says, "You can't touch me," that's when I knew the fight was about more than just me. So I took it public. I gave an exclusive interview to a local news station. I shared my story, my pain, and my hope that this would spark change. The video went viral. People started reaching out. Black professionals, women, parents, students, all sharing their own stories of racial profiling and police harassment. It was overwhelming, but it was also healing. The pressure built up on the department. Public outcry demanded accountability. Finally, the Bureau got involved deeper than just a civil rights complaint. They assigned a federal prosecutor to review the case. And then the moment came. That same cop, the one who thought he was untouchable, was called in for a formal hearing. He sat in a hot seat, under oath. His actions replayed again and again, dash cam footage, witness testimonies, my statements. He tried to defend himself, said he was doing his duty, said he feared for his safety. But the evidence told a different story. This wasn't about safety. This was about bias. The hearing ended with a suspension, pending possible criminal charges, and the department forced to implement new anti-bias training. It wasn't a perfect victory, but it was a start. For me, it was proof that standing up matters, that even when the system tries to silence you, your voice can break through. But the real justice wasn't just in the courtroom or the headlines. It was personal. After the hearing, I still felt the weight of what happened. Not just the physical bruises, but the emotional scars. I needed something more than justice through paperwork in courtrooms. I needed closure. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with truth and exposure. I requested a meeting with the chief of police at that department. It wasn't easy getting to the red tape, but my supervisor pushed hard. When I walked into that office, I saw the cop sitting there, smug, confident like nothing could touch him anymore. But this time, I held the power. I laid everything out on the table. The videos, the witnesses, the legal actions. I spoke clearly, calmly, but with fire in my voice. This isn't just about me, I said. It's about the trust you've broken, the lives you've affected, the community you swore to protect. The chief looked uncomfortable. The officer squirmed. I told them I wanted full accountability, not just suspension or training. I demanded a public apology, compensation for the trauma, and a commitment to systemic change. That's when things shifted. The chief hesitated, then nodded. The officer looked down, the first real sign of remorse I'd seen from him. And then I did something that shocked the room. I extended my hand. Let this be the start of something better. For all of us. He shook it. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a recognition of wrong. That moment felt like the real turning point. Because sometimes justice isn't just about punishment. It's about breaking cycles. About making sure the next person who looks like me doesn't have to go through what I did. Because at the end of the day, no badge or uniform should give anyone the right to humiliate, dehumanize, or abuse power. And when they do, they should be held accountable. That cop, he got hit with karma. And I reclaimed my dignity. Weeks later, the case reached its final chapter. The internal affairs investigation wrapped up, and the prosecutor decided to press charges, not just for misconduct, but for abuse of power and false arrest. The news hit the department like a bombshell. The cop who once stood so tall was now facing serious consequences. His suspension became a termination. His name dragged through headlines. But the most satisfying part? The community's response. People organized rallies demanding justice and reform. Local leaders called for changes in training and accountability. The FBI office I worked at held open forums to bridge gaps between law enforcement and the public. And I was at the center, not as a victim, but as a symbol, a reminder that courage matters. But the personal justice, the one that no court could give me, came in a quiet moment. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No name, just a note inside. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Thank you for standing your ground. It was from him, the cop who humiliated me, the man who arrested me. That apology didn't erase the pain, but it showed something deeper. Karma isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about awakening. I'm sharing this story not because I want sympathy, not because I want to be a hero. I'm sharing because this happens every day, to people you know, people you don't, because change begins with truth, with voices that refuse to be silenced, and because justice unspoken is justice denied. Thank you for listening.